In this video, we're going to take a look at the developments that took place in Season 7, Episode 21 of The Curse of Oak Island. But first, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to this channel, which you can do for free by clicking the subscribe button below. Season 7, Episode 21 of The Curse of Oak Island begins in the War Room, where geoscientist Jeremy Church reveals the results of the seismic survey of the eastern half of Oak Island conducted by Eagle Canada in Season 7, Episode 6. Church shows the treasure hunters a representation of the subterranean makeup of the Money Pit area and points out a 13-foot by 13-foot anomaly located at a depth of 160 feet. He calls this feature the teardrop, and reveals that the H8 shaft intersected its southern end. The narrator then reminds us that the original Money Pit was said to have a diameter of 13 feet, and attempts to equate the teardrop with the chapel vault, which H8 is believed to have grazed and possibly pushed to the side. If this scene gave you a sense of déjà vu, there's a good reason for it. Back in Season 6, Episode 3, Jeremy Church showed Rick and Marty Lagina similar diagrams based off seismic survey data collected in Season 6, Episode 1. In that episode, Church pointed out a 10-foot tall anomaly in the Money Pit area, which lay at a depth of 160 to 170 feet. Essentially, the same feature as the teardrop anomaly introduced in this episode. This formation appeared to be a cavern in the hard limestone, the edge of which borehole H8 apparently clipped. Oak Island Tours Inc. searched for this supposed cavern via exploration drilling in Season 6, Episode 4. Although their first hole apparently missed the target, a second drill hole, dubbed H7.5, yielded fragments of possible coconut fiber and pieces of wood which might have been hewn with an axe at a depth of 170 feet. In Season 6, Episode 12, Mike Roberts and Joey Rolfe of Dive Tech Limited attempted to subject the H8 cavern to a sonar scan by lowering a sonar scanning device and a camera-equipped ROV into H8. At a depth of 170 feet, the bottom of the alleged cavity, the scanner picked up what appeared to be the right-angled corner of a void. Before the operation could be completed, both the scanner and the camera malfunctioned, and the ROV filled with water. These frustrating setbacks becoming the most recent additions to a long line of unexplainable equipment failures on Oak Island. After the revelation of the teardrop anomaly, Rick Lagina, Doug Crowell, Billy Gerhardt, and Scott Barlow meet with botanist Dr. Roger Evans of Acadia University at the Eye of the Swamp. There, the treasure hunters show the scientist the largest of the 3 oak stumps unearthed in the area in Season 7, Episode 16. Dr. Evans extracts some bark from the stump and promises to examine it at his lab, remarking that the ease with which he removed the material reminds him of cork oak, a tree native to Portugal. The narrator proceeds to suggest that Portuguese explorers, or perhaps the Portuguese Knights of Christ, groups around which various Oak Island theories revolve, may have planted cork oak trees on Oak Island for some purpose. Scott Barlow then discloses that he has always believed the mysterious canopy oak trees which once grew on Oak Island were intentionally planted as markers by the original treasure depositors. The next day, the Oak Island crew meets in the War Room with Lamb and Richard Restall, the children and siblings, respectively, of Oak Island treasure hunters Robert and Bobby Restall. Lee tells the treasure hunters about an incident which took place during her family's Oak Island tenure. As Lee tells it, Robert and Bobby Restall's first operation on Oak Island was the excavation of a trench on Smith's Cove. On the morning following their first day of digging, the Restall father and son found their trench filled with water. Floating on the water's surface was an oak leaf and a cluster of acorns. For some reason, Robert Restall formed the opinion that the leaf was not from one of the so-called canopy oaks for which the island was named, but rather a piece of the mysterious coconut fiber eelgrass filtration system believed to prevent the Smith's Cove box drains from becoming flooded with sand and debris. It was part of the filtration system, Lee says, and it was coming from underneath. They used eelgrass, coconut fiber, and sometimes branches." Unquote. Lee then presents the treasure hunters with 2 envelopes, one of them containing the leaf in question, which the Restalls had pressed so as to preserve it, and the other containing some of the acorns which Robert and Bobby Restall had recovered from Smith's Cove. The next day, the Lagina brothers, Craig Tester and Dr. Roger Evans, meet with Lamb and Richard Restall in the Oak Island Research Center. There, the treasure hunters show Dr. Evans the leaf and acorns with which the Restall siblings provided them during their War Room meeting. The botanist compares the Restall acorns with local red oak acorns and concludes that the two derived from different species of oak. conceding the possibility that the Restall acorns may have derived from a type of oak which someone brought to Oak Island and planted long ago. When prompted by Richard Restall, Dr. Evans expresses his belief that the Restall acorns could not have floated across the Atlantic Ocean from Europe or Africa due to their poor resistance to the deleterious effects of salt water. Unfortunately, the botanist declares that it is unlikely the team will be able to extract any DNA from the Restall acorns for identification purposes due to their advanced age. Rick and Marty Lagina then drive the Restall siblings to the Money Pit area, where the rest of the team is preparing to sink a caisson on the teardrop anomaly introduced at the beginning of the episode. Rick informs Lee and Richard that the team has decided to name this caisson RF1, an acronym for Restall Family 1, in honor of the Restall family's contributions towards the Oak Island treasure hunt. The team looks on as Lee and Richard start up the oscillator, initiating the sinking of RF1. The Fellowship of the Dig resumes the excavation of RF1 the following day. At a depth of 86 feet, the shaft encounters timbers, which Craig Tester suggests are part of the chapel shaft. When the shaft reaches a depth of 100 feet, Gary Drayton begins examining each load of material removed from the caisson with his metal detector. Following Gary's preliminary examination, the spoils are transferred to a wash table, where they are manually washed and sifted through by Jack Begley and Steve Guptill. At the wash table, Steve Guptill finds a shard of red pottery. "That's really old pottery, Steve," Jack says. "Look at how thick it is. The thicker, the older, too, and that's the thickest pottery I've seen at this wash table." Unquote. Shortly after Steve's discovery, Gary Drayton finds the upper half of an old pickaxe in a batch of RF1 spoils brought up from a depth of 90 feet. Gary shows Terry Matheson his find before calling over Rick and Marty Lagina. Gary remarks that this artifact appears to have the same style as the pickaxe he discovered at the Eye of the Swamp in Season 7, Episode 13, which Carmen Legg, in Season 7, Episode 14, dated from the mid to late 1700s. "It's a cool artifact," says Marty of the Pick in a later interview. "I can tell you without going to the venerable Carmen Legg. It was probably built long ago." Unquote. Unfortunately, since the pick was found at a depth of 90 feet, it probably constitutes the leavings of a previous searcher rather than that of an original depositor. Below the 100-foot depth, the hammer grab brings up loads of large hand-cut timbers, which the treasure hunters set to the side. One of these timbers has a wooden dowel protruding from its end, evoking the wooden pegs found in the U-shaped structure. The artifact's resemblance to the Smith's Cove feature is further enhanced when Gary Drayton discovers what appears to be the Roman numeral 2 carved into the wood. The treasure hunters speculate that this timber, and the others like it, might have been left by the original Money Pit depositors, and agree to have them dendrochronologically tested. Before I wrap up this video, I'd like to give you a little update on the mysterious ring found in the Oak Island Swamp in Season 7, Episode 19. As I mentioned in my video on that episode, Master Goldsmith Charles Luton Brain's preliminary assessment that the ring's central flower motif was hand-chiseled was challenged in the days following the episode's airing, when several fans of The Curse of Oak Island posted photos of very similar yet modern-looking rings to various Oak Island-related Facebook groups. The notion that the swamp ring might be a modern artifact was bolstered by a Facebook comment left by an expert who has appeared on The Curse of Oak Island in the past, noting that one of the fans' rings, which bore an uncanny resemblance to the swamp ring, looks, quote, like stamped costume jewelry with a silvered copper alloy core, unquote. About a week after the first ring owners came forth with their jewelry, an American Oak Island researcher named John Frick announced on various Oak Island-related Facebook groups that he had determined the swamp ring's manufacturer to be Joseph Esposito, a jewelry manufacturing company established in 1910. Frick purchased a ring of the same model on eBay and found that, allowing for tarnish and corrosion, it was virtually identical to the ring found in the swamp. Although Frick's claims initially drew some criticism from fans of the show, an expert who has appeared on The Curse of Oak Island in the past came to his defense, writing the following as a response to his post. John Frick did his homework well. Scientific analysis results on the metals that comprise the ring, performed after the filming wrapped, in which I read constantly, pointed to a unique plating method that was developed after 1930. Knowing this, Even though the earlier opinion that the fabrication method could allow the ring to be much older, it became obvious this year that it was not. What you don't see often on TV is the real lag time in receiving test results. The show tells the story of the hunt, and sometimes test results come in too late to be of impact to the show." Unquote. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to this channel, which you can do by clicking the subscribe button below.